Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Chuck Caesar with Afrobeats in Perspective. I want to speak today, actually to respond to a video that was released via Pulse TV, where the commentators involved were speaking on the biggest flops in 2014. And first of all, I want to big up Pulse TV, big up Akinyemi, Obina, Osaji, Tunde, and Naomi Day. I really appreciate what you guys are doing. As commentators and social critics in the music industry, I think it's necessary for growth and development, for progress overall. I agree with pretty much everything you guys said in the video, except when it came to one issue, and that was Wizkid's album, Eye of Joy. To be honest, I believe that calling Wizkid's album, one of the biggest flops of 2014, I think it's trolling at its best. It's a grave exaggeration, because when we look at the facts, Rolling Stone magazine, one of the biggest international magazines based out of the United States, they're a big tastemaker when it comes to music. They listed his album as one of the 15 great albums you didn't hear. And he's getting accolades internationally. So to come back and now say that this same album was a flop, something is off, obviously. I really believe that we should be wary of falling into that trap where a prophet is held without esteem in his own home while being highly regarded outside. I remember when Wizkid's album dropped, I was playing it at my office, and some of my coworkers, some Americans, they were listening to it, they were vibing, they're like, who's that? They were very interested in the music, they were feeling the flows. So for him to get this kind of respect from the outside, from people who don't know him, and then I'm hearing from my fellow Nigerians that, oh, they don't think this album is don't think it's up to par, that it's one of the worst albums per se, one of the biggest flops of 2014. Something is off somewhere. And I think a lot of it has to do with perception and our expectations. Oftentimes we, in a sense, exalt something, and we blow it up in our mind, and when this thing that we're looking forward to, that we've exalted, when it comes to us and it's just average, just regular, because of that, in a sense, we denigrate it. We begin to actually make it out to be worse than it is. And I feel like that might be the case with Wizkid's album. It's something I refer to as the curse of expectation. This man kept us waiting for his album for 3 years, and a lot of people were in their mind hyping it up to be, that it was going to be incredible, that it was going to be another superstar, which never happens. No one ever drops the same album twice. And it wasn't. It was a good album. There was a lot of good music on the album, but it wasn't superstar. And I think that's what a lot of people have a problem with. Honestly, I believe Wizkid dropped a good body of work. The album was good. There was a lot of maturity, perhaps not in terms of the subject matter, but when we look at his vocal performance, it's definitely an improvement from Superstar. When we look at his style, we see him going from this young Weezy, it's your boy Weezy, to Star Boy Weezy. There's definitely a transformation, and I think it highlights growth, improvement in a sense. Artists can't stay the same forever. This Wizkid situation reminds me so much of Nas, with his first album, Illmatic. It was considered a classic, the streets, media, it's one of the best hip-hop albums ever created. But that album has been a gift and a curse, because all his other work has always been held against, that first album. His second album dropped in '96. It was a great body of work, great music, sold very well. But the critics, panned it because it wasn't Illmatic. It wasn't the first album. And I think that's what we're seeing happen again with Wizkid. No artist can really go back and create that classic album again. Things are different. We are in a different climate now versus when Wizkid first emerged on the scene. When he came out, he was kind of in his own lane, doing his own thing. He created a new sound, brought a new style to Afrobeats, Afropop. The truth is that under this new climate, Wizkid is not, he's not the only artist dropping hits. There was a time, maybe 2011, 2012 period, when if you wanted a hit song, just put Wizkid on it. He was like almost on every hot track at one point. Like, you would have like a rapper or an artist who's not even that good, but if you put Wizkid on the hook or something like that, the song would blow. And it was a different time. In 2014, there are so many different artists who are emerging and putting in work and putting out hits. We have Davido, we have Yemi Alade, Pataran Can Run Town, the Mavens crew. Like 2014, we saw a lot of hit songs by various artists that were not Wizkid. But does that take away from the fact that Wizkid is still a hit maker, that he's still dropping hot songs? No, not at all. Just a different climate, more competition. The fact is that regardless of all the competition in the industry, Wizkid still dropped a stellar album. I think that some people may have an issue with the album, maybe because there were songs on there that should not have been on there. But that's every artist. You always have those songs that's like, why did he do this? And Wizkid, he's not exempt from that. I'm sure that if we cut down on the number of songs on on that album, we would have a strong body of work on its own. Apart from the length of the album, I think that the beef with Davido, was also something that contributed to people's perception of him and his music. It kind of created this division. You're either Team Wizkid or Team Davido, and I think it just created a harsh climate for him to drop the album. It became like a competition. Well, Davido had more hit songs, he had Aye, he had this. So in a sense, people begin to downgrade or look down on Wizkid's accomplishments. Overall, I would say Wizkid had a good year. He dropped a dope album. He performed extensively overseas and domestically. He was part of a lot of the big shows that occurred in Nigeria. He was doing his thing. In terms of the album itself, it was a good body of work. There were some lows, there were some highs, but it's to be expected. To however label this album as one of the biggest flops of 2014, now that's a crime. It's not fair at all. I think it's not just an injustice to Wizkid, but it's an injustice to Afrobeats, Afropop as a whole. But thank you for tuning in with me. God bless, take care, and I'll see you guys at another time.